The Trumpet Daily program begins right now.
Today's world news, what it means, where it's taking us.
I bring you the one and only possible message of world peace.
This is a message of hope, tremendous hope. And he said unto me, you must prophesy again.
The Trumpet Daily program begins right now.
It's a vicious war, and if I can help solve it, you know, we're not losing our soldiers, but we're losing soldiers, a lot of people. And if I can solve it because of a certain ability, that would be great. And if it doesn't happen, I will say that I think Russia is ready, and a lot of people said Russia wanted to go for the whole thing. And I think we have a deal with Russia. We have to get a deal with Zelensky, and I hope that Zelensky, I thought it might be easier to deal with Zelensky. So far, it's been harder.
What we're seeing in the Trump 2.0 administration regarding Ukraine and Russia, it appears to be a complete betrayal of what we have known to be U.S. foreign policy for basically the last half century. And Washington is reportedly pushing a deal that would include recognizing Russia's control over Crimea. Now, if we go back to the first Trump administration back in 2018, that Trump administration firmly defended Ukraine's territorial integrity, including its territory of Crimea. Has the U.S., in your opinion, lost credibility as a peace broker with this type of policy U-turn?
In three of the most strategically important regions in the world, we are increasing allied burden sharing while we increase deterrence. America first doesn't mean America alone. It means we expect our allies to step up. First, in Europe, our allies are finally, thanks to President Trump in the first administration, and again in these first 100 days, following America's call for European leadership and ownership of continental security. We've transferred U.S. leadership of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group to the UK and to Germany. We've obtained commitments from Poland, one of many model allies, the Baltics, to spend 5% of their GDP on defense. We've made the same call to other allies. 2% is not enough considering the threats you face. The time of the United States, here in Pennsylvania, here in our beautiful country, being the sole guarantor of European security has passed.
No let up, as we've been saying all week. Every day now the peace plan leaks. Donald Trump's peace plan between Russia and Ukraine. Of course, Russia is all on board with this, and Ukraine isn't. It's obvious why when you look into the details. But then there's the Secretary of Defense saying the time for the U.S. being, you know, the guarantor of European security. That's over. That's over. It's now time for Europe to go it alone. You're listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily. We appreciate you joining us on today's show. You can get to the live video stream of this program at trumpetdaily.com or at the Rumble channel, rumble.com/Trumpet Daily. The email address, if you want to submit some feedback, is td@thetrumpet.com. So as I say, no let up. I mean, everything is lining up just so. The aggressive push moving Bible prophecy forward. It's every day. It's nonstop. It's nonstop. I mean, what are we seeing happen? As I've said so many times, it's important. Say what you will about Donald Trump. I mean, and you really have to look at the record of appeasement this entire century. It's not like it's just Trump appeasing Vladimir Putin. George Bush did it. I mean, go back before that. Look at what Clinton did to Ukraine in the 1990s. Yeah, if you remove your nuclear deterrence, the U.S. will always have your back. We will always protect you. We will always guarantee your safety. That didn't hold up too well. But then the record of appeasement this century, Bush, Obama, the fake president, Joe Biden, just funneling money, basically, into this money pit. It wasn't like the Biden people pushed Vladimir Putin back. I mean, some would say, well, at least they were putting up somewhat of a fight through Zelensky. But then here comes Donald Trump with Witkoff and all the rest saying we've got to get a ceasefire. And the New York Post is saying today that the big push, just like you saw before inauguration, we've got to lock up this deal in the first 100 days because the administration has been a fabulous success. It's the same spirit. We've got to get that ceasefire with Hamas and Israel before I'm inaugurated because I'm a success. I'm a peacemaker. I'm going to solve the problems of this world. The trust that we're putting in man, not looking to God, obviously. But you see all of these events just aggressively pushing Bible prophecy forward. And of course, we've also drawn a lot of attention to the fundamental flaw of the current U.S. administration, and that is with respect to its diplomatic efforts to bring peace. You know, on Monday, I referred you to this latest Trumpet magazine, the one with the peace dove on the cover. And of course, with that program, we were drawing attention to the death of the Pope and how that there's an article in here on the next Pope. How tomorrow's news today, I mean, if you're not a subscriber to the Trumpet, the title, A New Era Requires a New Pope. We put a spotlight on that Monday on the show. Today it's Thursday. You've got the peace plan for Ukraine. That leaks. And you see what a failure man's attempt to make peace really and truly is. And there on the cover, the latest Trumpet. It says, will Donald Trump's peace plan fly? I was thinking of another cover, the latest Royal Vision, where it says, give me victories. Give me victories. Here again, if you're in the MAGA movement, if you want America first, if you're tired of endless wars, if you want a ceasefire at all costs, you do have to step back and say, is this who's the victor here? Who's claim? No wonder Vladimir Putin loves this. He gets to retain the territory he's already devoured. You know, sanctions are eventually going to be lifted. He gets everything he wants. He invades Ukraine under Obama's watch. He invades Ukraine. And then these many years later, he gets everything that he wants. The level of trust that the current U.S. administration has in Vladimir Putin, it's mind-boggling. This is an administration. And again, he's not alone. It's not like he's the only one to trust Vladimir Putin. I mean, George W. Bush said he looked right into Putin's eyes and he saw a man that he could trust. Obama trusted him. They all trust Putin. And then you have a little bit of a break from that, but only because of Orange Hitler. Suddenly Russia's the villain. Because, well, you know, Donald Trump's in bed with Putin. He's a Russian agent. That's what the Hillary and Obama people were saying to try to bring down Trump. You look at both sides. You know, the Trump supporters saying, 100 days, it's been so fabulous. It's been one win, one victory after another. And then you've got the other side. I'll play the clips later. You've got the other side saying this is the most disastrous 100 days ever. Well, the truth of it is somewhere in the middle. There have been some successes, there have been some victories, and clearly there have been some failures. Trusting Vladimir Putin, trusting that he won't invade another Eastern European nation. You know, Europe's take on this is it's complete and total capitulation. Surrender. I mean, this is the perfect narrative for the Daniel 8 man to emerge. This is the perfect scenario for a strong man to show up and say, you know what, I need to come in. I'm the only one that will stand up to Orange Hitler. I'm the only one that can stand up to Putin. I'm the only one that can draw a line in the sand in Eastern Europe. And think about how this impacts the selection of the next pope, as we've been saying this week. I mean, of course, there's the regime media the international media even, that's portraying Francis as the second coming of Jesus. In fact, as many articles have noted, you've got a Catholic Church in disarray. You've got a Catholic Church that also needs a strong man. I mean, there's an article at the Federalist saying that, look, it's not about just saving the Catholic Church. The next pope's going to be responsible for saving civilization. This is a world in realignment. Everything is perfect. From the Daniel 8 man's perspective, everything is just perfect. He's sitting back there somewhere in Europe. He's smiling away. This is perfect. I'm going to come in through flatteries, just like the Bible prophesies. Not that he's saying that, but we know it. God tells us in Daniel 8. God tells us in Daniel 11. There's so many takeaways and angles to this story. I mean, clearly, Vladimir Putin, the Prince of Rosh, we've got a whole booklet on that subject. It's right here on the table. If you don't have this one, call our operators today and request your free copy. The prophesied Prince of Rosh, or Prince of Russia. The 800 number, 1-866-930-3024. You bear with me. I'm knocking things over, but we're surviving. We're going forward. We're keeping it real. So much to study. And if you've been a student of Bible prophecy, a student of history even, I'll get into some of that here in just a second. But Vladimir Putin is clearly testing the resolve of Donald Trump. It's just like in the lead up to, World War I and World War II. You've got these enemy nations, these aggressor nations pushing. But the Bible has something to say about pushing regarding radical Islam. I mean, that's just been the way of some of these Gentile kings. Push, see how far you can go, and then pull back just a little bit, and then go and devour some more. But to just sit down, as Witkoff has done, to talk to Putin and to trust him, that's childish, that's foolish, and leaders should know better. All of this is happening. The death of the Pope on Monday, the leak of this so-called peace plan, Vladimir Putin's aggressive push on Eastern Europe. It's all happening when Europe, the continent, is virtually leaderless. There's no strongman. They need one. That's the way they view it. They've got to have one. As I say, it's the perfect scenario for the Daniel 8 man to justify his emergency appearance. I've got to take charge because it's an emergency. And it's the same with the Pope. What a perfect crisis this is for a much stronger, more conservative Pope to emerge. It seems that the foundations of modern Europe, they're crumbling. And when you think about the Daniel 2 prophecy, the mixture of iron and miry clay, it all makes sense. Again, how Europe views this is from Euro Intelligence. The Europeans were clearly not prepared for what was about to hit them over Ukraine. There's still an overwhelming expectation in European capitals and in Brussels that the only acceptable end to the war is a Ukrainian victory. We're heading towards a big showdown, and there's plenty of potential for really bad outcomes. If it goes the wrong way, this could be another 1914. I'll go through some history with you later where Winston Churchill talked back in, I think it was the 1930s, he talked about just how fragile democracy is. I think it was actually in one of his history books on World War I. I forget when he wrote that, but in any event, he's talking about how fragile democracy is and how it just takes a little bit sometimes for everything to just explode. This is where we are. This is where we're headed. It says, when details of the Trump plan leaked yesterday, there was shock and outrage on a scale we have rarely seen before. Here's the reaction in Europe. I mean, this matters. We can't just get into what benefits the United States in the short term. How is Europe responding to this? It says the plan foresaw something we have been predicting since 2023, that any peace settlement will reflect the military situation on the ground, and that this would include Crimea. So there are those that saying, look, they're saying we have to take a realist perspective here. We don't want to give Putin a victory, but on the other hand, it is what it is. Russia's in Crimea. Russian forces are in certain parts of eastern Ukraine. Just give that to Putin. Welcome him back into the community of nations. And there's going to be peace from here on out. A lot of people believe that. Russia won't get territories on its shopping list, but it will keep what it has. That's what Putin wants. That's the only way he's going to draw down. I'm keeping what I have. We fought for this. We lost hundreds of thousands of Russians fighting for this. It says here, a typical reaction to the plan came from Matthias Dopfer. He's a journalist in Germany. He called the plan, Trump's peace plan, a total capitulation for both Ukraine and Europe. The Europeans should not even discuss it. This is a capitulation for Europe. That's the way Europe views this. If we go ahead with this, we're surrendering to Putin, and we can't have that. As I say, it's a perfect scenario for the Daniel 8 man to appear over at the Telegraph. This is in the UK. It says Donald Trump's 7-point proposal for ending the Ukraine conflict may be many things, but it most certainly is not a peace plan. It's a blueprint for more war. Surrender, capitulation, betrayal, appeasement, abandonment. These are the words that better describe the egregious apology of a peace deal that the Trump administration is currently hawking around Europe. Telegraph says here, rather than attempting to address the fundamental causes of the conflict, namely Russia's unprovoked invasion of a sovereign state, Trump and his band of fellow travelers have reached the perverse conclusion that the best way to achieve peace in Ukraine is by rewarding Russian President Vladimir Putin for his blatant act of military aggression. And as we've seen, I mean, there's plenty of people in the Trump administration that don't even blame Russia for the conflict. They want to put it on, Europe or Ukraine. Membership into NATO, whatever the case might be. Appeasement, in other words. Appease the dictator in Moscow. As I said, the New York Post, its editorial board believes that the rush, the pressure to get this done is so that it can fall in those first 100 days of what they see as a very successful Trump administration. Play clip 10 from Fox News.
So this is the report card for how the president has done thus far. Look, really strong numbers when it comes to the border. He's at 55% approval. He does well on foreign policy, too. Look at the border crossings at the southwest border. In March, they were down 95% from a year ago. And Americans largely approve of, how he's getting bad people out of this country, despite what's happening in the courts.
As far as that goes, he's saving lives. He could be saving tens of thousands of lives, depending on how much he's reduced the flow of fentanyl into the country. Play Tom Homan. I think he was on with Jesse Waters, clip 6.
History's nation right now. Lives are being saved every day. Migrant lives under Joe Biden. Over 4,000 illegal aliens died making this journey to the United States. How is that humane? That's an historic record. And again, 250,000 Americans died from fentanyl. How is that humane? They want to say our administration is inhumane. We're not giving due process. We're saving lives by the thousands.
And he's probably right. There are some victories. Show me victories. Here's one of them. But then you got the other side. You couldn't be farther apart, these two. When you look at the commentary, what passes for it in the United States. This is Rachel Maddow on the first 100 days, clip 11.
And if there is something to learn about what Trump in power is going to be like, I think the first 100 days have given us one very clear lesson, right? We know he's trying for the whole dictator thing, no elections, no courts, no resistance, rule by terror, right? We know that. We know the people of this country aren't having it. But I think what we should also know, what we have just lived through in this first 90 plus days thus far, is him screwing up. It's him absolutely blowing it. But I think it is equally important to recognize that he's really bad at everything he tries to do. I don't know if he's bad at good stuff he tries to do, because he's not trying to do much that seems good. But the bad stuff he's trying to do, he's been real bad at that. I mean, it hasn't been funny exactly. It's too disgusting for that, but it has been the proverbial comedy of errors.
That's rich coming from the radical left, given what the country experienced under Joe Obama. Bitter, bitter affliction, sickness, disease, just pouring across the border. So it's a mixed bag. Some victories, some defeats, some capitulation and surrender in between. Yesterday, I guess Elon Musk let it be known that he's on the way out. As far as Doge goes, I guess Doge isn't disappearing, but he's only going to put some time in, on a part-time basis, because he's got to get back to Tesla. I mean, Teslas are burning up across the country because of radical leftist soldiers that are deranged, that are just deranged in their reasonings. They used to be 100% behind the green energy, the electric cars. Now Musk is a Nazi. Listen to the Five. Again, the way the Five view it, this is great. Musk did it. He did it like a CEO. He came in there, he straightened everything out. It's all fixed, and now he's moving on. I mean, it's perfect. This is clip 2.
But now they won't have old Elon to kick around anymore. Musk says he's ready to ride off into the sunset after Doge claims it saved American taxpayers $160 billion and counting.
Starting probably in next month, May, my time allocation to Doge will drop significantly. I'll have to continue doing it for, I think, probably the remainder of the president's term, just to make sure that the waste and fraud that we stop does not come roaring back. I'll be allocating far more of my time to Tesla, and now that the major work of establishing the Department of Government Efficiency is done.
So it's the contribution that he made is not how much he saved the taxpayers. It's exposing how much Democrats stole from the taxpayers. It's so easy. It's only 3 steps, Greg. You are a Democrat, you know a Democrat in D.C., and you get them to send you money. That's how it works.
And he's right. He's right. Musk has exposed how the system works. But as Musk said himself there in that piece, I mean, I'll be, touching in from time to time to make sure that the fraud and the abuse doesn't come roaring back. And the truth of it is, $160 billion, that's just a drop in the bucket. Steve Bannon, I guess he's had his run-in with Musk. But he's right about the fact that, on the campaign trail, we're going to eliminate $2 trillion. Then it's $1 trillion. Then it's $160 billion, but nothing this year. And virtual silence among Republicans in the House. Where are they? Where are they saying, yeah, look at what he's discovering. We're going to slash this. We're going to reduce the budget for this group or this agency. There has been none of that. The same amount of money, more, is flowing out to these agencies that have been caught red-handed with all their fraud and their abuse and their waste. It's a lot of sickness. In defense of Musk, it's a lot of sickness to try to cure. It's a lot of cancer to remove. But it just highlights, again, how sick the nations of Israel really and truly are. God intervened because he didn't want to see them blotted out entirely. But God did not intervene and heal us of the sickness. The sickness is still there. That's what we've got to confront. That's what we've got to look at. That's like the elephant in the room. And nobody's addressing it. We're talking about, hey, it's a fabulous success. Or then the opponents, oh, no, it's been a total disaster. So we get more of the same as far as the commentary goes. Meanwhile, the scenario, the narrative, it's perfect for the Daniel 8 man. And you've got the Secretary of Defense saying, hey, the days of the U.S. guaranteeing security for Ukraine, Europe, or anyone over there, it's over. It's over. Meanwhile, Putin's on the march. Putin's being appeased. And European leaders are shocked. They need a strongman, don't they? And as it happens, they're about to get a new pope as well in Vatican City. Right there that's at the belly of the beast. Everything's lining up. The New York Post, this article about getting everything locked in place the first 100 days, talking about the peace deal that leaked yesterday. It says here, after all, that would have been a massive strategic loss for his nation, talking about why Zelensky said, no way, I'm not accepting this. Trump is also demanding the Ukrainian leaders sign off on a lock-in of the front lines, effectively ending control of occupied areas of Luhansk, Donetsk, and elsewhere to Russia, and that he give up on any plans to join NATO. Talks about the security guarantees that America gave Ukraine in 1994. It says, bottom line, Trump is asking Zelensky to make massive national security concessions while abandoning hopes of a more realistic treaty and concrete security that might make such concessions strategically tenable. I mean, this is the New York Post. It's not like the Huffington Post. It's conservative, for the most part. By contrast, Russia is asked to give up little. It would have to withdraw from Kharkiv and allow free travel on the Dnieper River. At the same time, Team Trump is threatening to wash its hands of the matter entirely if the deal fails to get done. It says Russia appears to have a stronger hand, and Trump's not wrong to want to get a ceasefire quickly. To do that, Ukraine will have to make some concessions, especially if Trump won't change course. But make no mistake, this is the New York Post summing it up. Putin started this war and is 100% responsible for it. He's the villain and deserves punishment, not rewards. If realism means some concessions, they should be as little as possible, and they must ensure that he won't reignite more bloodshed down the road. We've got to have a guarantee that war won't break out again. We don't have that. It says, alas, the White House has more or less positioned itself as a legitimator of Putin's irredentist claims. Worse, it seems to be under the delusion that its latest proposal can lead to a lasting peace. You see, here's the great fundamental flaw of the Jeroboam administration. The idea that we're peacemakers. We just want the hostilities to end. No matter the concessions, no matter the appeasement or the amount of it, just stop firing the guns. Again, echoes of January 20 or what led up to it. Just release the hostages or else you're really going to get it. You're going to be in big trouble. You better release every single hostage before I'm inaugurated. It says here, the speed of the push, the public repudiations of Zelensky and Stephen Witkoff's mission to Moscow all suggest the White House is racing to cross off a campaign promise before the 100-day mark. And it has every sign of proving to be a failure. Pretty sad. But not surprising, is it? Because when they say peace, peace, just know, when they say peace and safety, just know that sudden destruction is coming. This, again, is history. Besides what Bible prophecy says, it's history repeating itself as well. I mentioned that history that Churchill wrote, The World Crisis. That's his book on World War I and the surrounding events. And in that book, he ponders on just how fragile diplomacy is, how fragile our democracies are. He says here, the task of diplomacy was to prevent such disasters. I think he's talking about a crisis that happened in 1911. As long as there was no conscious or subconscious purpose of war in the mind of any power or race, diplomacy would probably succeed. But in the grave and delicate conjunctions, one violent move by any party would rupture and derange the restraints upon all and plunge the cosmos into chaos. This is a man, you see him there on the screen, that knew a little something about the human heart and how duplicitous it is and how easy it is for man to betray fellow man, to stab, just like Judas. Sure, yeah, I'm in this to serve the needy. I want to give money to the poor. You see all of these narratives on Pope Francis, and then you dig a little deeper into the chaos, the division, the politicization of this church, this universal church. Just a thoroughly worldly organization, as I've noted this week. Complete with voting, politics, all of it. It's got a budget crisis, just like nations do today. Churchill's commenting on, again, this crisis, the Agadir, I guess is how you say it, from 1911. It's when Germany was pushing the French in Africa to just see how far they could go. An aggressor nation, just pushing. Churchill says, it seems probable now that the Germans did not mean war on this occasion, but they meant to test the ground. And in so doing, they were prepared to go to the very edge of the precipice. That's what we're seeing today. I mean, Putin, he's testing the ground. As my father said years ago, I mean, his goal, and he stated it as such, his goal is to rebuild the empire, the Soviet Union. And so he's pushing. He's seeing how far he can go. And just be sure that you know Iran, China, they're all watching and observing. And even Europe, they're looking at this. How far can you go? How far can you push the world's lone superpower? It says it's when you're on the precipice, it's so easy to lose one's balance there. A touch, a gust of wind, a momentary dizziness, and all is precipitated into the abyss. Isn't that interesting? I gave you an article earlier this week saying how that the next pope needs to save us from the abyss. And then European leaders, they're going to be saying the same thing about the strong man. Okay, he came in. It wasn't necessarily through democratic means, but listen, we need someone to save us. We need someone to save Western civilization. America's not going to do it. Look at Putin. He's getting everything he wants. And now we're responsible for our own security. Pete Hegseth said so. It's amazing. One of our news gatherers pointed out how Lloyd George at the time, when Germany was pushing back in the early 1900s, he came out and he was a pretty radical liberal for his day. But he came out and said, we've got to show some strength here. We've got to stand up to the aggressor. Now, my father, at the same time in the Churchill booklet, he exposed just how strong that spirit of appeasement was, certainly in the 1930s. I mean, we heard for years in the 1930s that there's going to be peace. I mean, we're right on the verge of peace. We've got the signed signature. We've got a peace agreement. There's going to be no more war. Neville Chamberlain, I mean, he viewed himself as a peacemaker. And the deal that he secured was a guarantee for more war. We better be careful trusting in man, trusting in the peacemakers of today, the diplomats, the ambassadors for peace. Churchill said, if a situation were to be forced upon us in which peace could only be preserved by the surrender of the great and beneficent position Britain has won by centuries of heroism and achievement, by allowing Britain to be treated where her interests were vitally affected as if she were of no account in the cabinet of nations, then I say emphatically that peace at that price would be a humiliation intolerable for a great country like ours to endure. That's the truth. Sometimes a peace agreement, far from bringing peace, is a humiliation for the nation groveling before the dictator, for the nation trusting the dictator, trusting the aggressor, believing that in his heart of hearts, he just wanted a little bit of territory, but not much more. Maybe not any more at all. After all, I looked into his eyes and he told me, I'm going to stop. Yeah, I'm going to stop with what I have right now. And that's it. That's the end of it. And now there's going to be peace. The crisis in 1911 passed, and everyone assumed that diplomacy won out. This is 1911, just a few years before the Great War. And Churchill, again, commented on how many throughout civilization had gone this very course. It says, no, it is nothing. No one would do such things. I mean, we've got peace now, and also we've really come a long way. We're very modern. They thought this in the 1900s too. Look at how sophisticated and modern our society is. Look at how much modern education has brought us to this point where we know so much more than our ancestors for sure. He goes on and gives the excuses that we give today, or the reasons why we're not going to have a world war, certainly not. The interdependence of nations and trade and traffic, the sense of public law, the Hague Convention, liberal principles, the Labor Party, high finance, Christian charity, common sense have rendered such nightmares impossible. Certainly not. There's not going to be a world war. There can't be. Churchill said, are you quite sure? Are you quite sure? It would be a pity to be wrong. Such a mistake could only be made once for all. I mean, we see these same attitudes, this same mindset today in so many ways. Like Solomon said, there is nothing new under the sun. Nothing has changed except that human nature is worse, 2 Timothy 3:13. But aside from that, the nature, the heart of man, I mean, just seeing that in the life and teachings of Jesus Christ. You know, what was going on in the heart of Judas or the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the Herodians, even the disciples. I mean, they were right there on the night before Christ was crucified. Peter, who became the chief apostle, and you've got to cut him some slack. He didn't yet have God's Spirit dwelling in his mind, but he very confidently said, though others will offend you, I will not. I will not offend you. I will not betray you. I will die with you. And then the others said, hey, we're exactly as strong as Peter. We're not going to betray you. We're not going to run from you. And then they all went to sleep that evening while Jesus was pouring his heart out to God in prayer, to the point where he was sweating great drops of blood through his pores, praying for God's will to be done through him, praying for his human will, which he stated openly, I don't want to go through this, praying that human will would submit to the will of God, and it did. He did it with God's help and power. And the next morning, when all those Roman soldiers came to arrest Jesus Christ, I mean, it didn't take long at all for all of Christ's disciples, Jesus Christ's students, to take off and run. They fled away from Jesus Christ. And they were so confident. They sounded so bold. This is going to work. We are going to be with the Son of God. Nothing will separate us. There's that kind of self-confidence everywhere you look in the world today. Everybody's got a plan. And in some cases, those plans leak. And are they? Are they really pointing us in the direction of peace? Or is this another humiliation leading to more war? We had an article in the Trumpet. This is at the Trumpet website 10 years ago. Promises of peace and then sudden destruction. You've heard that a lot on this show. To take what Paul wrote in 1 Thessalonians 5. And this article at the Trumpet, it talks about what led up to World War II, how Western leaders were working so hard to appease Adolf Hitler. Surely he'll dial it back. Surely he'll back off. Surely he won't keep devouring territory. Just let's have a ceasefire and let him go ahead and have the territory he's already conquered. But as long as we get an assurance that he's not going to go for more. And we said at the Trumpet, this is 10 years old. This is during the last couple of years of Obama. Does this history not sound familiar in the events of our day? The U.S. struck a nuclear agreement with Iran. That's the JCPOA. This deal is supposed to prevent Iran from producing its own nuclear weapon. And then it talks about Iran's history as the #1 state sponsor of terrorism and how they just, even in their parliament or whatever you call it, they're calling for death to America, to Israel, the Jews. Kill them all. And we had a peace deal in place. Obama, he was the architect. If we can just let Iran do what it wants, have its bomb, give it a pathway to create a nuclear weapon, then we'll finally have peace. It says in Europe, the sovereignty of Ukraine is in a prolonged state of violation with the annexation of Crimea 18 months ago. I mean, that happened during Obama's time. What did Obama do? As I say, it's easy to just look at Trump and say, well, he's appeasing Putin. Obama did the same thing. That's just been the way of American leaders, certainly in this century. Appease, appease, appease. And every time it leads to more war. Where are the victories? Okay, there's a few victories here at home, but show me the victories. Give me the victories. When are the tyrants, when are the dictators going to be crushed to where they can't devour more territory, more nations? It says, if the Western nations continue on the path of appeasement, diplomacy, and self-delusion, what will be the end result? The answer should be only too clear. The United States is following in the same footsteps as the British leadership of the 1930s. They claim to be working toward peace, but they are only stoking the embers of war. We know from history the same behavior we see today led to the worst war the world has ever seen. I mean, it's uncanny just how similar the situation is today as it was 10 years ago when we were appeasing Iran, appeasing Putin, and so on, making the same mistakes. There may be different intentions. Obama, I mean, he was trying to empower Iran. He wanted Iran to get a bomb, to just change the balance of power in the Middle East. And then appeasing Putin, you've got Trump now, for his part, saying, I just want the killing to stop. I want the shooting to stop. I want a ceasefire, even if it means giving Putin whatever he wants. But fundamentally, the same mistakes. It's a perfect scenario for the Daniel 8 man to emerge. It's a perfect scenario for a stronger Pope as well. This is from Damian Thompson over at The Spectator. It says Francis was a charismatic pope loved by most of the world's 1.4 billion Catholics, who make up 18% of the global population. He was particularly loved among the poor, but few of them grasp the scale of the crisis in the church. And even fewer are aware it was made worse by the pontiff whom the media insist on calling the people's pope. His leadership was marked by favoritism and poor judgment. I mean, let's be real. Let's give you that truth. You see, in so many of these articles, you see just how thoroughly earthy the Vatican is and the papacy is, just as the Bible describes it in Revelation 17 and other passages. It says the next vicar of Christ will face challenges that dwarf those that confronted any incoming pope in living memory. The church is mired in doctrinal confusion. Its structures of government are fragmented. Sexual scandals have been hushed up at the highest level, and it's staring into a financial abyss. Lots of problems. Lots of problems that need to be fixed. And guess what we need to put forward to fix them all? Well, another human being. Another man who fancies himself as being in place of Christ, the vicar of Christ. Why not look to God? Why not look to Jesus Christ? Look at this article title from the Federalist. The papal conclave is a battle not just for the Catholic Church, but for Western civilization. You see, it's amazing looking at these headlines, reading some of this content and thinking, you know, at least, I mean, underlying it, you can see that people know this is a world on edge, that we're right up to the precipice. And like Churchill said, when you get there, it doesn't take much. Just a little gust of wind, just a little nudge, just a little slip, and you come crashing down. This is where we are. It's a world in so many ways of instability and chaos. The papal conclave to elect a successor to Francis will soon be underway. Cardinals from all over the world, they're gathering in the Vatican. Corporate and Catholic media alike are rife with predictions. It says, what's certain, however, is that the conclave will be a contest between two competing visions of Catholicism. On the one side are the aging liberal boomers who came up in the aftermath of the Second Vatican Council and whose vision for the church is decidedly modern. They think everything that came before Vatican II is bad, and that ripping out the altar rails, selling off the icons, and banning Gregorian chant and polyphony in favor of tambourines and guitars was a great improvement. So you've got this war in the great universal church. Who will emerge? Well, we'll see. We'll see when the smoke comes out of that pipe a few weeks from now, following the decision made by the conclave, made by the cardinals, in a vote, a series of votes, no doubt. It says, on the other side is a cohort of more traditional, theologically orthodox, and culturally conservative prelates who reject the liberalism of the spirit of Vatican II. They understand that Catholicism is attracting new, increasingly young converts worldwide precisely because it stands against the chaos and the confusion of modernity. We're on the edge of the abyss. We've got to stand against modernity. We've got to resist against wokeness. You've got a lot of similar sentiments in the MAGA movement. Look at what this has done to our nations. Look at what it's done to the world. We need strength. We need a traditionalist. We need a conservative. We need to get back to the foundation. It's the perfect scenario, isn't it? For the Daniel 8 man and for a much stronger Pope. The Federalist says here, the conclave then is the battleground where this contest between the recent past and the emerging future of the Catholic Church will take place. In some ways, that battle is part of a broader contest playing out in the West between an aging liberal elite and the younger generations whose civilization they have ruined. So the conclave in Rome will be both a battle for the future of the Catholic Church and for the future of the West at large. I mean, this is what's at stake. So Europe needs its own Trump. And the Vatican does too. I mean, look, there's bound to be some surprises with how this plays out. But I mean, the title in itself, look, what's at stake here is Western civilization. So we need strength. We need a strong man. You look at Romans 13, what it says there about the powers that be are in the places they are only because God allows it. So God's hand, I mean, look at what he did to bring Jeroboam back. And then you look at Jeroboam and you look at some of the flaws and the weaknesses, the failures. God's trying to tell us something. He's trying to wake us up. He's trying to show us our sins so that we'll do something to come out of them. A battle for the future of the West. It says it might prove to be a turning point after which we return to some kind of fellowship under Christendom or become something else entirely, neo-pagan and anti-Christian. It says all eyes now turn to Rome, precisely because the fate of the West has always been and will always be bound together with the Vicar of Christ and the Holy See. The fate of the West has always been bound together with the Pope, the Vatican, the Catholic Church. I mean, that's a chilling comment. That's at the Federalist. We quote them all the time. Everything's at stake. Everything's on the line. There's another one here from firstthings.com that, again, highlights just how purely carnal and worldly this religious organization is. I mean, it functions just like any other corrupt human government. When Francis took office, he was immediately confronted with a new scandal in the Institute of Religious Works, where there had already been scandals enough to delight novelists and filmmakers for years. It was encouraging that the new pope acted right away to appoint a commission to investigate the troubled institution. Though we had full powers to examine all records and question anyone, we were stonewalled at every turn by bank officials. What? I mean, this is a church just trying to get to the truth. A church just trying to uphold morality, right? I mean, they were stonewalled? To get a sense of what was going on, I and another commissioner interviewed nearly every one of the bank's 115 employees, but we found that assurances of confidentiality from the Pope himself could not overcome their terror of speaking frankly. Just keep the evil covered up. Well, this is something we know goes on all the time. In nation after nation after nation. But, I mean, this is a church, right? Some months later, Francis brought in Cardinal George Pell to reform the entire financial system. The Australian prelate was shocked to learn there was no centralized oversight of Vatican finances. Well, we know something about that in the United States as well. When there's no oversight of finances, look at how they spend. Look at what they spend it on. Further on, BCU continued to resist Pell's efforts until Pell was obliged to return to Australia to defend himself against charges of abuse of a minor. This is all going on in the Catholic Church. To this day, BCO has never explained the purpose of large sums of money he sent to a detective agency in Australia at the time that Pell was being investigated by authorities there. And on it goes. It's just like Mr. Armstrong said about the Vatican. It's its own government. It's a worldly institution. If you want to read or study more about these prophetic events and how that everything's lining up just perfectly for the emergence of two prophesied strong men, one coming out of the heart of Europe and one prophesied to come from out of the Vatican. This is the book, The Holy Roman Empire in Prophecy. That's all that we have time for on today's show. The fastest moving hour. Wow, 11:59 already. The fastest moving hour in broadcasting. You're listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily. We thank you for joining us on today's show, and we'll see you tomorrow.